Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Sharp Weekly. And in this video I'm going to show you how you can create a client-server applications using the state management pattern. So not using the MVVM pattern, although you can use MVVM pattern, that's perfectly fine if you want to do that. I think it just adds another layer which is not needed. If you want to read or view a little bit more about my latest thoughts about using MVVM with SwiftUI, you can definitely check out my videos. And I also published a video about how to use the state management pattern. I don't think that's the real name, but I think that's what they call it in React. So I'm just using that. This is the same technique that Apple is using in their SwiftUI applications. So let's go ahead and create a simple bank application where you can deposit the money, withdraw the money, and this will also have a server component, meaning all the money, all the transactions, actual business logic will be on the server. All right. Now, I have already created the server and you can see it's pretty basic. It's not like doing some real transactions or anything. We can start with our bank account. There's only one bank account with account number 1 for John Doe with a balance of $100. There is a service, meaning an API or a route endpoint, which is going to return you the current balance. There is another one right here, which is deposit, which deposit the money to your bank account. Now, all the business logic related to the bank application, related to the transaction, will be on the server. You can see that over here, I don't really have that much business logic, but we can have business logic. Let's just assume, and I don't think any bank does that, but let's just assume a business logic where whenever you submit a new balance or new amount, then it calculates the interest on that particular amount and then deposit that amount into the interest back into your account. So that can be a good business logic that you can implement on the server. Let's go with the withdraw part. When you're withdrawing the money, you also have the business logic, and that logic can be based on if the amount that you want to withdraw is less than the account balance, then we will go ahead and subtract $35 from your account as a penalty for insufficient funds. So all of these things that are happening, these are the business logic, and they are living on the server, not on the client. It's the same exact thing, right? I mean, if you are building a web application, the client is running in the browser and the server is somewhere hosted on AWS or some other platform, the business logic will not really be on the client, because if it's on the client, meaning on the website, anyone can just view the source and see all the stuff that you're doing, right? So that's the main reason that the business logic is on the server. So server meaning the actual server written in Node.js or whatever, we can go ahead and update it. And obviously you need to be authenticated and all that stuff in order to deposit the money or withdraw the money and view the current balance, but we're not talking about those things to make it simple. All right. Okay, so we already have these current balance, deposit, and withdraw set up. Let's go and move to our application. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is create the interface for our application. Now we can write the complete interface in content view or some other view, but we would like to divide our interface into smaller views. So let me go and add a new group, and I will call it views. And in the views, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of different views. And the first one will be available balance view. As the name suggests, this particular view, the available balance view, will simply show you the available balance coming from somewhere. Let's just call it available balance, and let's put the balance over here. Let's say 0, something like that. All right. Great. Next up, we will create the deposit view. So I'm going to go ahead and create another view, and I will call it deposit view. And one other view, which is, you can guess, for withdrawals. So withdraw view. Withdrawal View. All right. Okay, great. Now we can go back to the content view and start using these views. Obviously, there's really nothing in the view right now, but we can still kind of like stack them up right now. Okay, I'm going to use a form with particular sections. Each section will display us something. Let's use the header also. So section, and you can see that we can provide the content and the header. The content can be, the first one can be available balance view, and the header will be text available balance. Perfect. Looks nice. Let's go to the next one. We will do the section for deposit view. We don't really have the view created right now, meaning we still have to create the deposit view and make sure that the deposit view looks nice. And then we also have the withdrawal view. Okay. So these are the different things we have right now, and currently they're not really doing much. Now, in order to communicate with this API, I will go ahead and create some sort of a service. So let's go ahead and create a group, and we will call it a bank service or services. And inside services, I'm going to go ahead and call it the bank service. Okay. All right. So now we have the bank service. I'm going to go ahead and create a bank service. Bank service is going to allow us to communicate with the external API. So I'm going to mark this with observable object, and it will only have one property marked with publish, which will be the balance. That's mainly what we are interested in. Great. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we are getting the current balance. If we go over here, you can see that the current balance over here is initialized as 100. So once we get the current balance, we should be able to put 100 on our screen. For this, let's go ahead and create a function, get current balance. This will be async. It can throw. We need the URL and make a request. That's not a big deal. There we go. We got a request, current balance. I'm actually passing and hard coding the ID over here because we only have one customer. Obviously, this is wrong. And probably you should be getting the ID after logging in. We don't really have those kind of things right now, so I'm just passing it so that I can access the ID 1 for the customer, because that's the only account number. That's actually the account number. Okay. Next, we're going to get decoder to decode something. Now the problem is, well, decoded to what? We don't really have any DTO objects that we can decode to. If we go over here, you can see that the current balance is going to return you a response object, and that object will have two properties, the success and the balance. So how can we do that? One of the ways you can do that is to create those DTO, or in our case, the model objects, which are based on the request and the response. In this case, we're mostly interested in the response. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new folder, and I will say responses. In the responses, I can go ahead and create an object for type of the response. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the current balance response. So I'm just going to go ahead and create current balance response. You can decode it to a dictionary, but whenever you decode a dictionary, there is a problem that you might misspell something. So we want to give it a proper structure. The current balance response will be something that is decodable, and it will consist of the Boolean, success, balance, as also the message. Now let's go ahead and see that if we can use the current balance response. I'm going to go to my bank service, and in my bank service, I can say that this particular response will be current balance response with the data. All right. we are going to get a current balance response. Next, we can check if the current balance response is successful. Then we will go ahead and get the balance, current balances, dot balance, and we can just extract out the balance. If there's a problem, we can throw an exception. You can also do something over here if the balance is not available, like throw an exception. I'm just going to throw an exception over here for time being. And you can come up with like a better name for the exception. I'm just going to call it bank error with a custom error. So I'm just going to say bank error dot custom error, and I can say the current balance response dot message, or return something like this. And that's it. That's your current balance. Now the question is, where should we call this current balance? Once we have created the current balance and we have the bank service, we can inject the bank service as an environment object. So it's available everywhere. Let's go to our bank app. We're going to go ahead and create, either we can inject it right there or as an environment object, or we can simply inject it in a different way also. Now we can go ahead and inject the environment object by simply saying bank service. Okay. All right. Now let's go to the available balance view. In the available balance view, we need to use the bank service, which is already in the environment object. And then when this particular, we can attach the task to this text box. That's the only control we have. I mean, if we have a VStack or something, we could have done that, but that's the only thing we have right now. And we can get the balance. We can read the balance right from the bank service. Now, we'll pause it over here for just a minute, but let's go ahead and read the balance. And I also want to format as currency. So if you want to format your balance, which was something that you were doing inside the view models, you can actually do that just by extending the particular data type. So let me go ahead and show it to you. I'm going to go ahead and create an extensions folder. And since I believe we are getting back the double, I'm just going to go ahead and include the double. I will call it at extensions. There we go. And in that extensions, we are just going to go ahead and add format as currency. So right over here, I'm just going to add an extension, format as currency. So now it's available to all the data types that are double. Okay. All right, so over here it's messing you up because we don't really have the environment hooked up over here. We can do that over here, but we're just going to run it in the simulator anyways. Okay, so there you go. Now there is a message on the terminal publishing changes and all that stuff. So that's very, very dangerous. Let's go ahead and see what's going on. In the bank service, you can see over here, we are saying that set the balance, and this has to be set on the main queue. So we can try to put a main actor over here. So this means all of these functions are going to be setting their values, are called on the main queue, and also the properties will be set on the main queue. So hopefully that was going to solve our problem. Okay, great. And you can also see that the $100 balance is visible. Now let's go back to our code. At this point, you might be wondering that didn't you just call a web service from right within your view? And if that is your question, then I would appreciate that if you go back and check out my previous videos that I have listed. Because in SwiftUI, a view is not only a view is also a view model. And the reason it is a view model is because it has a binding capabilities. So you can treat your view model just like a view model. You don't really need any additional thing for the view, like available balance view model, because it's already a view model. And you can already do all of that stuff. All right. Now let's go ahead and move to the deposit view. Okay, so the deposit view is capable of, well, depositing money in the bank account. For this to work, we will have to create some sort of an interface. So let's start with that. I'm going to create a simple interface. There we go. And we should be able to look at the interface after I remove these bugs. We need deposit function, we need the deposit amount, binding. So that is the stuff that is available in the view model, and that's why we create a view model so that we can bind, but you can directly do that in the deposit view. The view is the view model. And this is how it looks like. Okay, it looks kind of fine, although I would like to go to the content view and see how it looks like over there. Oops, it's actually blowing up because we haven't injected the environment object. So let's go ahead and inject the bank service so it can make it happy. There we go. And I'm going to pin that, okay, because I want to see the same view in the deposit view. Perfect. Now there are certain things that we have to take care of when we are working in deposit view. And those things are not technically server-side business rules, but they are validation rules on the client side. You may have already seen these kind of rules if you are visiting a website and you go to a bank and then you have to transfer the money or something, and the limit is certain amount, and if you type in, as soon as you type in the amount, it will tell you that, hey, you can't transfer $3 million because the limit is, I don't know, $100,000 per day or something like that. So you don't really have to go to the server to validate those rules. You can just validate those rules on the client side. Just like the rules like the username should not be blank, the password should not be blank, the confirm password and the password should match. All of these things can happen on the client side. So in the same way, we can create a function in our view, which is also a view model, that can validate whatever we are trying to do in our view. So I'm going to go ahead and create a function. I will call it isValid. Simple name. It's going to return a Boolean. And we can pass in some amount over here. I guess we are checking the amount, so we can do that. We're just checking if the amount is valid or not. There are a couple of different client-side rules that apply. One of the rule is you can't really, amount has to be, if it's greater than 500, then we cannot really allow that. So if amount is greater than 500, then error message is amount over 500. It would be nice if you use a formatting operator, so it's not always showing your $sign if you're in a different currency. But anyway, I'll leave that for you. Amount over $500 is not allowed. Okay, so this is all client-side validation. You can call it, I mean, if you want this, these are some rules, but these things can be evaluated on the client side. You don't really have to send it to the server. In the future, if you want to change this, then it would be a good idea to get these rules from the server, but then still evaluate them on the client. So maybe this limit next year goes to $1,000. One way to change that would be to publish your app again on the server. I mean, publish your app to the App Store with the change. The other one would be to get these rules from the server so that you don't have to publish it and you can simply change this to 1,000. So it will definitely help you if these rules are in some sort of a JSON file, and you can simply change it on the server and it automatically reflects on the client side. But anyway, that's a completely different story. All right, if the amount that you have entered is less than 0, meaning negative, then also it's not allowed. You can't really do that. Otherwise, we will go ahead and set it to empty and return true. There can be some other rules. If you think that these rules are getting like client-side rules, validation rules, input rules are getting crazy, you can move it into a different file which can validate this. Okay, now let's go ahead and implement our deposit function. Private function deposit. This is going to deposit certain amount. We'll say async. We will get the amount. If is valid, the amount is valid, then send to the server. The client-side validation is valid. That does not mean that everything is good. All right. Okay. Else, well, if it is valid, only you do that. Else, you are always going to see these messages. Okay. Let's go ahead and call deposit over here. Okay. So now the question is, well, what do we do now? Well, if we go to the bank service, you can see that it has a get current balance, but it doesn't really have a deposit function. So we need to implement that. So let me go ahead and just copy it, and then we're gonna go over it. We are still missing a couple of things. I don't want to type it out again and again. So let's go ahead and copy the deposit function. We are gonna go through it. Don't worry about that. Okay. A couple of things we are missing, so that's why we have to implement those things. Deposit function lies in the bank service. You pass in the amount that you want to deposit and probably the account number, but I'm hard coding the account number. You should probably be passing it over here. Deposit request is created. We don't have any of these things, so let's go ahead and create a new group for a request, just so that we can give it a little bit more structure. I mean, I can go ahead and create some sort of a data type, meaning like a dictionary, and I can do all of those things, but it's always a good idea to give it a little bit more structure. So we will call it deposit request. The deposit request will simply be used when you are depositing something. So that is a request all going to do. It's going to populate the account number and the balance or the amount that you want to deposit. All right. Let's go ahead and see what else is missing. We have the deposit response is missing also. So let's go ahead and create a deposit response also. We will call it over here. Deposit response. So whatever is being sent from the server, we're mapping it to our DTO objects or response objects and request objects so that we can look at it and we can say that, okay, we got the balance, we got everything. And that's it. That is your deposit function. One thing to keep in mind is that once the deposit has been successful, you can see that the server returns you the updated balance, which is right here. That updated balance is then applied to the self.balance property, which is marked with published. This means that everyone who is listening to that is going to get a new copy, is going to get updated. Not really a new copy, I guess, but it's going to get updated. All right. Okay, new value. Let's go to the deposit view. And now we can probably do something over here. Do, try, await, bank service. Well, we don't have the bank service over here, so we need to refer to the environment object in the deposit view. Bank service, and now we should be able to perform the deposit. Deposit the amount, which is the amount. All right, we can catch the bank error dot custom. We will get some sort of a message, and whatever message that we get, we're just going to assign it to the message property. For a more generic error, we're going to get the error message assigned to the error dot localized description property, and that will be our deposit function. Let's go ahead and see if the deposit function is even working or not. All right, here we go. I'm going to try to deposit -1. You can see that the client-side validation is happening and it's telling us that you can't do that. What about -2? Nope. What about $1? Okay, you can see it increased to 101 now. It is deposited on the server. Server is the one that's keeping track of your money. How about $600? There we go. You can see 500 not allowed. I'm going to say $200. All right, now I have $301. If I go ahead and run the app, I should get $301 because we're fetching it from the server. All right. Same thing with the withdraw. So this will be our view, which is also acting like a view model. I don't think it's that large. I mean, I think it's fine. It's doing the job what it's supposed to be doing. For the withdraw view, we're going to do the same exact thing. All right. Let's go ahead and first create some sort of a UI for our withdraw view. And you can see that we already need a couple of different things like the withdraw amount that you're withdrawing. There we go. It will be very, very similar to the deposit. Let's go ahead and refresh it. And now you can see that you have a withdraw amount. Okay. Next up, we have to implement is valid, this client-side validation. So is valid, amount, double, Boolean, and we can go ahead and check for a couple of different things, including minimum withdrawal, maximum withdrawal, and all of that stuff. So this is our is valid part. We also need our web service to be updated so that we can withdraw something. Right now we have the deposit, but we don't have the withdraw. So just like the same way, I'm going to go ahead and copy the code for the withdraw, which is similar to deposit. You can see it's not much difference. Yes, we are using something called withdrawal request, just like the deposit request. So let me go ahead and create that. I can reuse deposit requests, but it's not really ever a good idea because eventually you will find out that your deposit request and withdrawal request have parted ways, right? So it's always a good idea to create a new one. Unless you're 110% sure, then you can do that. The same thing with the deposit response or withdrawal response in this case. So I'm just going to add a new response. Withdraw response. There we go. Now we can go back to the bank service and refresh it. Okay, looks like it likes it. Not much going on in the withdraw. It's the same thing. We're posting something and the server takes care of the rest just by subtracting the amount from the balance. Now, there are some business rules that are on the server side. If the account balance is less than 35 or less than the amount, or the balance is less than the amount, then we will say insufficient funds. And this is a business rules, which is also going to give you a penalty. Now, I have commented this out, but these can be business rules that will fire when one of these situations get messed up. Okay. Going back to the deposit view, let's go ahead and implement the deposit view, which is very similar to, withdraw view, which is very similar to the deposit view. I keep saying wrong. Here we go, async. We will, why am I implementing deposit? See, I'm getting confused over here. I should be implementing withdraw, right? Okay. So private function withdraw async. We will get the withdraw amount, what you're trying to do. And we are going to check if is valid the amount. If it is valid, then probably we can perform a request. So try await bank service. Again, we don't really have access to the bank service. Withdraw amount, and then we can catch the error and all that stuff. But good idea would be to get access to the bank service. So let's go ahead and get access to the bank service. There we go. And I'll also talk about something that I have found, and I'm not sure what will be the best solution for that. Okay, let me actually first implement all of this stuff. Error message equals to message, and catch, this is a more generic general catch, which will be error dot localized description. And now we should be able to call the withdraw function. Let's go ahead and run it. You can still see that it's $301 because it is stored on the server. Let's go ahead and try to withdraw $10. You can see it's $291. What about if I try to withdraw $0? Well, minimum withdrawal is 1. So this is kind of like a client-side validation that we ended up doing right inside the view. What about if I am withdrawing $500? Maximum withdrawal is $200, so we can do that also. All right. If I'm doing $100, I should be able to withdraw $100. What about if I withdraw $100 again? Good. What about if I withdraw $100 again? Insufficient funds. Can't do that. All right. So it looks like everything is working as expected. Now, one thing to note over here is, and that's one thing that I don't really like, and I don't know how to fix it at this point, is the only thing that is actually changing is the available balance. That's the only one that is reading the balance property, right? And displaying the current balance. But anytime you press the deposit button or the withdraw button, since all of them are using the environment object, both of these controls render again. So basically everything renders again and again and again and again. With the size of these controls, it may not matter that much. Views are easy to create and discard, and you can create those. Actually, if you start typing something over here in the deposit or the withdraw, the view is rendered again and again. All right, so it is being rendered again and again and again. The reason that I'm saying that is that I don't want them to render because there is no need to, because I'm not displaying the amount in any of these controls. I'm not. Having said that, there needs to be a little bit more research on my part, or you can comment if you want, is that even though they are maybe rendered, it's very quick to render these things because they're just so small. They can just discard it and build a new one. But I do wonder that if my views were a little bit bigger and maybe I was showing the list of transactions, then would that have the same effect or not? So that's my question for you. But I've shown you how you can create your view, which is also a view model, in your SwiftUI application and perform all of these different operations. Client-side validation, which happens over here. The withdraw function, which is going to take help from this bank service. And the bank service is going to perform actual actions on the server. So this is basically creating a SwiftUI application using the state pattern, which Apple employees also use, or Apple engineers have also used, and that is the same pattern I'm using. I'm not creating any additional view models because even though it will still work, but it's not really needed. So there you have it. Hope you like it. Thank you so much. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out my Udemy courses. I have a lot of great courses on iOS development, including ARKit, SwiftUI, Combine, MVVM design pattern, RxSwift, even the core data courses. So definitely check out these courses, and the best way is to follow the link in the description. And right now there's a sale going on, so if you use the code SUMMER 2022, you should be able to get these courses at a very, very discounted price. Keep in mind that this code is not available forever. It will expire in a couple of days. And obviously, if you're watching the video very, very late, like maybe weeks from now, it has already expired. But don't worry, you can go to the other link that I have in the description, which will list all my courses. Thank you so much.